I'm Dr. Gus Penix, President of the Nicholas County Board of Education, and I'd like to call this regularly scheduled November the 1st, 2021 meeting to order at this time. Would you please rise and join the board? A moment of silent reflection. We have a lot to be thankful for this week. We had I don't know whether you're aware of this, but on one of our buses last week, a tree fell across the road on top of the bus. We're very fortunate and we're thankful that no children were on the bus at the time. It could have been very devastating, and the bus driver was okay as well. So we're very thankful for that. So we want to be thankful. Remember that as we're being thankful this evening. We also want to clear our hearts and minds for the business we're going to talk about here tonight. So a moment of silent reflection, please. Thank you. Would you please join the board saluting our country with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. The third item of business on this evening's agenda. Madam Secretary, it's my understanding that the minutes for the meeting held on October the 4th are not ready at this time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I had a computer issue.
Okay. So at this time, I'll be asking for a motion to approve the minutes for meetings held on October the 18th and 19th, 2021 for this evening. And you have received those electronically. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Amick moves. Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Berry seconds. Any further discussion regarding the meeting minutes for the meetings held on October the 18th and 19th of 2021? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. At this time, we have, for discussion items and presentation, an update from Tammy, Gregory, Director of Attendance, Student Services, along with Mr. Williams, Truancy Diversion Specialist, and Chris Hanshaw, Technology Director. So I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Gregory at this time.
I handed out to you the attendance report for the second month and a listing of things that goes on in my office, in my world, from week to week. For attendance, I do weekly registers, and schools send out a letter for students that have 3 unexcused absences, and then they copy me on those letters that they send out to parents. I then, at 5 days, will send letters out and have meetings with students and parents that have over 5 unexcused absences. And then when it gets beyond that, that's when Mr. Williams gets involved. And he'll tell you more about his portion of that when he's up here. I'm a homeless liaison, so I keep track of all the homeless families. Right now we have 268 homeless students, and identification is the hardest part of that. We also have money for homeless families through Kenny Vento, and from time to time I or a member of a school will shop for students that have need, that they're in the homeless population. I try to give each of the schools some funding each year in order to get things, to have personal care items, and to have school supplies on hand at the school. Sometimes they get, shoes and coats and things like that. And a lot of times outside organizations like churches and community organizations purchase coats and winter things for kids, so that that's on hand at schools.
Tammy, are they considered homeless if they're living with someone other than their parents?
Yes.
Okay. Grandparents are still home?
Unless the grandparent is the legal guardian, if they're living with 2 families together, doubled up in a situation, that is considered homeless. And that's another reason why it's hard to identify, because a lot of people think, well, no, we have a home that we're living in, we're not homeless. And so that's part of the problem with identifying. Also, I am the Faltus Shelter Liaison. I work closely with Morgan McMillian, the Faltus Shelter Director. We meet weekly, and sometimes between the two of us, we'll have to skip a week because of just not being able to fit it in our schedule, but we try to meet weekly. And we have a tutor that is there for 8 hours a week currently, and I got some extra funding this year. We got $57,000 extra that we don't normally get. So the state lady said, you know, it might be helpful to hire another tutor. We, as far as the Faltus Shelter goes, through McKinney-Vento funding, we purchased 7 computers, 4 laptops and 3 desktops. We pay for some programming for the students that get registered there to work immediately, get started working on credit recovery. They have Khan Academy, so as soon as a student gets enrolled there, the Faltus tutor then puts them in and gets them started working on some work for school.
Mrs. Gregory, what is the age range of students that are at the Faltus Center?
They've gone as low, they've had some elementary kids there before. I know last year they did. Currently, they have middle and high school age kids.
Are these court-placed children or?
Some are. Some are. It's an emergency shelter, so usually it comes down to the fact that they need placement right away. So even if it's court-ordered, if there's not a bed, then they have to find another place.
What's the average time that they spend there?
Well, it's supposed to be short-term, but some of the students have been there. There's a student there currently that's been there 10 months.
Did you say that, I'm sorry, did you say their capacity is 8?
They accept 10.
10.
They don't have staffing for more right now. I'm also the homebound liaison, so when students have to go on homebound, we have around 22 students, I believe. I work with Mrs. Young on that, and I think there's close to 22 students. We have a meeting Wednesday, and I would know more exact numbers on that date. But some of the kids are medically fragile, and they're on there year to year. And we used to, when we expelled students, they would have to go on homebound, but now with the deferments that we do, they're over here usually, and so that has cut down on having to hire so many homebound tutors. I'm also the Gear Up County Coordinator. I work real closely with the 2 high school counselors. They are in charge. They get the kids to get their FAFSAs filled out year to year. They take them on college visits to show them college campuses, things like that. And credit recovery, they work with that. Gear Up is really nice. Currently, we're not in a Gear Up year. It just ended, but we think that we're going to get accepted again. They're going to start it up, I think we find out in December. So I'm feel certain that we'll be involved in that again. On the expulsion disposition team and keep records for that. The Nicholas County Learning Center, I work with Mrs. Hoover in transitioning kids to the Learning Center and back to high schools back to school when they go back to their respective school. Homeschool liaison, as of today, we have 320 students in homeschool. I have to update the virtual school policy yearly and send that into the Department of Ed, and then I'm the virtual school county contact for our proximity learning that we've taken on this year. Currently, we have 38 students that are in virtual schools, and grades, I think they come out Wednesday for those kids. So far it was a little bit of a rocky start because we came on just right as school started. So it was a big influx of students, and they didn't have enough teachers. So they have had to hire a bunch of teachers and train them. And so since like mid-September, I think it's been much more smooth going.
Is this the virtual school program provided through the Southern
Yes.
Educational
Yes.
Consortium?
Mm-hmm.
So, and they have enough teachers now to handle
Mhm.
the number of students?
Yes, it's been pretty smooth the past several weeks.
How many students did you say?
38. I used to sit in on more of these. I don't so much now. The referral team and the SAT IEP process, we used to have meetings, and I haven't had to do that much since this year. Last year, we didn't do it too much because of the COVID and everything being remote. I take care of the school calendar for the state requirements, and then make the county calendar for opening day, these blue ones that you all got that we put out for the employees. I take care of proofs of enrollment for driver's eligibility. That's the most important thing I do if you ask any student in this. Transcripts, I send transcripts to colleges all over the place. I'm the liaison for work permits. I have to send work permit information into the Department or Division of Labor. I work with the Family Treatment Court, and that's been a really good thing. This year I just started it this school year, and we have a lot of families with addiction problems, and these people with children, they're trying to get their lives back on track, and so they get accepted, they apply and get accepted into this program, and I help keep track of their children, make sure their attendance is good, make sure they're not having discipline problems at school, and keeping track of their grades. And then truancy diversion, I work very closely with Mike Williams. We talk every day, work together well, and I'll let him tell you more about his world when he's up here. And we also work with the itinerant social workers and counselors, and we've brought them here today. So I'm going to introduce them. If you have questions for them. If I tried to type up a list of what all they do, it would be 10 or 12 pages. So I'm just going to introduce them. Here on the front row, we have Matt Kaiser. He's a itinerant social worker. We have Stephanie Westfall. And then the next one is Hannah Kress. They are both itinerant counselors. And then Liz Bragg on the end is an itinerant social worker. And the second row back here, we have Mike Williams that you all know. Matt Bailey is an itinerant counselor, and Lisa Gilkison is our last itinerant social worker. We have one more social worker, but she's a cheerleading coach for the middle school, and they do cheerleading stuff right after school, so she's not here. Desiree Murphy. So,
Mrs. Gregory, before they come up, would you go back to the NCLC, CLA, which is the center that's located in the building, the Learning Center. Students in that program, this is a way that we keep kids in school as opposed to expelling them from being able to attend any classroom. And,
this board and Dr. Tetrick have seen fit, which is excellent in my opinion, to defer expulsions, and that's not on a kid's record. If they mess up, they can go over here, get their education, and if they, straighten up and fly right, so to speak, and put forth good effort and bring their grades up, then they can go back to their home school before the school year is over. And that would be obviously up to Mrs. Hoover and the teachers that work with those kids on a day-to-day basis and see everything, all day long.
And there are certain other aspects of working, like I know that the law enforcement,
where they do the physical fitness
and leadership.
And leadership.
And then
and pass drug test. And counseling.
The majority of them do transition back into school.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Very rare that they don't. Mm-hmm. And I'll have to say also, you're talking about your crew here, they probably don't know this, but in every single LSIC meeting that we have had, every single principal thanked this board and praised the work that each of you are doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I was speaking to some of them a little bit ago, and just in passing said, "Hey, how's it going?" And they all say, "Well, we're pretty busy, but it's good work." So they do a great job. And I'm sure you'll have questions for them if you want to ask them anything.
Well, we realize that your services they're very much needed in our schools. We know, we appreciate it, so.
Well, I know when the board used to do this, and we wasn't doing near a good a job as you all, probably a fourth of the students that had to go to the Learning Center were from out of county. Is that still going on where a judge had placed them?
No. I mean, that can happen, but that's not going on now.
I think you're
Are you
referencing
talking
the
about
Fulton
Fulton?
shelter,
Oh, yeah.
and that's completely changed. I mean, the
Yeah.
working relationship is wonderful, wonderful.
Okay.
Do you want to let Mike Williams come up and explain a couple things he does?
Come on,
Come
Mike.
on down, Mike. You're the next one.
I'll try to be short. I know you have a busy agenda. Good afternoon. I want to start off by certainly thanking Dr. Tiedrick and this board for their vision of support services, not only for students, but also for staff. And when I first come, there was just Tammy and myself, and now we have 4 social workers. Tonight you're going to be asked to approve a 5th social worker, and this person will be a liaison between the Fulton shelter and the school system, as well as a social worker part-time over here at the Learning Center. So we thank you so much for seeing the need, and I do, when I go into the schools, principals and the staff do thank us, because a lot of their time in years past was spent working with families, calling families to see issues. So now these folks can do that. So thank you. Talk a little bit about truancy issues, and this has been an unusual year, to say the least. Lots of quarantines. I think some of the high school principals are now with some students up to their 4th or 5th quarantine with the students. It's been difficult. It's hard to get into a routine. Liz is the social worker for Nicholas County High School. Matt's the social worker for Ridgewood High School. They help me out tremendously because we have a lot of issues with children not attending school. And so we work really, really hard to keep them out of the court system, because for years I worked with the court system, and I know the difficulties that children have when they're in the court system until their 21st birthday or they graduate high school. Very difficult for them. So we try to keep them out, but there are times that I file criminal complaints, and what I try to do is for elementary school children, I'll file criminal complaints against the parents. For middle and high school, I file juvenile petitions against the student. This year it's been particularly trying at times, because prior to filing those petitions, we've been working with the nurses, school nurses, we've been working with the principals to determine, is the records accurate? How many times they've been quarantined. So it stands right now, I've filed 1 criminal complaint, and I've filed 3 juvenile petitions. I would say that this week I'll be filing probably an additional 3 to 5 juvenile petitions with the prosecutor's office. But we work really, really hard to try to keep these children and families out of court. So we attend SAT meetings, we make home visits, I attend what's called multi-disciplinary team meetings, where we work collaboratively with the prosecutor's office, normally the Public Defender Corporation, as well as DHHR, outside service providers, whoever is a part of that child's workings with them trying to keep the child at home. So that's just a part of what the social workers and the counselors do. Many of the counselors do individual and group, as well as work with teachers to go into classrooms and see what they need. The social workers work normally with the family unit, trying to work to see as a whole as to what they can do or what we can do to assist. And then we also work with the community. I work with the Nicholas Intervention Coalition. One of the good things that was identified that we're starting to work with is some community members approached us. One is a retired nurse here, Beth Jordan, talking about some of the issues of grief that happened last year with some of our teachers and students passing, and trying to get programs for grieving families. And so we're starting to get that off the ground. So we're really excited, and I'm excited to have colleagues here that we work closely with to try to help students and help families to be successful within Nicholas County.
Explain to everyone what, when you mentioned SAT meetings, they may not know that.
Student Assistant Team. Lydia works a lot with the SAT process, but SATs is not an actual function sometimes of special education, but if a child is having difficulties, then the school can ask that a SAT meeting be conducted, and we have the team there to identify and try to come up with resolution, as whether it's attendance, whether it's behaviors, because one of the things that we're seeing this year as well is, I'm sure this board would have been tired of having expulsion hearings. I think last year we had 13 total expulsions, and I believe we're about up to 16 already this school year. A couple scheduled. Kim sends out some information for 2 more today. So that's an issue as well. I'm seeing a lot of students and families that struggling right now, struggling with life, and so we're just trying to be a part of helping to make some decisions. I mean, we have students some that have 3-point upwards of grade point averages, 22 to 25 credits towards graduation, wanting to withdraw from school. And
Blake, have you had a pretty good association with the prosecutor and your request? Do they respond to them?
yes, they. One of the good things is I file my own petitions, and I just affirm to those petitions. In the past, the prosecutor's office completed those juvenile petitions. Same way with criminal complaints. I complete my own criminal complaints. So all I do is turn those in, and that makes sense. So all they have to do is schedule the initial preliminary adjudicatory hearing, which takes some of the burden off of them. And so, yeah, we've worked closely with the prosecutor's office. The prosecutor is on military duties right now, so so that's Jonathan Sweeney, and we hope that he'll be back in December or January. But Paul Williams and Mike Cox has been working good with us. Mike takes care of all magistrate court hearings, and Paul Williams has been doing the circuit court hearings. So we've worked, and I've explained to him the struggles, and he said that they would do all that they could do to schedule hearings and get those as quick as possible, because sometimes children continue to miss school, and if you don't have a hearing scheduled for 2 months in advance, that's a lot of days that a child can miss.
Does the student assistance team deal with academic problems as well as disciplinary problems, just whatever happens.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yeah, anything that's
Because I'm
needed.
sure some children have been discouraged because they have to miss and they get behind.
And parents can request a
Yeah.
SAT meeting as well.
I think some of the things that's the overall SAT looks at is academics, behaviors, attendance. Those are the three main points, but there's other things that we've talked about is supports within the school system, within the community, and that's whether it's counseling needed at the wellness center or counseling through an outpatient community behavioral health center. Some of those things are discussed. We're real careful in talking about, if a parent brings up medication therapy, then we'll try to encourage and link them up maybe sometimes with the services that we feel like that they could benefit from.
Well, I just think this is great. I mean, used to be it was the principal and call the teachers in, the counselor, and we try to work it out, and the parents if they would come. So now with all these supercharged people,
Well, and it used to be that you had kindergarten teachers and aides going out on a home visit at the beginning of school to meet with the family, and that's the only home visits that ever went on. And now, the past 2 years, this county has had hundreds.
I used to make home visits.
Hundreds of them.
A lot of benefit to that.
It is, it gives you another insight to what they're facing.
And I think it's encouraging for the parents. It seems like every day, even if you call them, they're thanking you and saying, I'm glad that you care to call. And that's
And
good.
grandparents. I bet you're going and talking with a lot of grandparents.
You say they can contact you as well as you contact them, right? When they call you, Tammy, you say,
Some do.
start with you, or
Some do.
or with the representative at the school, or
Well, families, I get a lot of phone calls. So they call me, they call Mr. Williams, they'll call the schools, and if whatever the issue is, we try to make sure that somebody at the school, along with one of our social workers or counselors, knows the situation. And one thing I forgot to put on my list is handle with care. And we're working hard this year to get that started back up, because it has not been, after last year, it just kind of went by the wayside. And so we're trying to get that worked back out this year.
Well, one thing that wasn't mentioned is prior to the hiring of these individuals, our elementary schools may have a visit from a counselor once every 2 weeks.
Right.
Now, every elementary school has a presence of support at every school.
Every day.
Every day.
Daily.
Every day. And they didn't have that before.
Well, it definitely, going from the days when I was a principal, there was so very little interaction between the home and the school. I mean, we had a counselor and the principal and the assistant principal, and we were basically trying to cover all the bases of running a school and trying to, work to some degree. But this is a much needed thing that we have, with people being able to get to the home where the kid is and learn about the home situation and what's going on there, the dynamics of that whole situation, and plus the dynamics of the school. So it's just a benefit to our children all the way across the board, and we're very pleased with that.
Also, from my perspective, I assist Chris in doing a lot of Title IX investigations. We've had more of those this year, so it's been a trying year, and we're trying our best to help students and their families. So we appreciate the opportunity to speak to you, and thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mike, I think it's going to continue until we get over this COVID.
Yes, sir, I believe that as well.
Well, it's just, everything's more complicated now than it was, 20, 30, 40 years ago. It's just, things change, and we'll probably need more social workers. Maybe for the board too. I don't know.
I can tell you, it's unbelievable to have such a powerhouse of employees sitting in this group right here, because they are good. Our principals rave about them. I've known of suicidal kids that they sit up with, that they are there until problems are resolved. I know they jump into action with law enforcement, with whatever's needed. They do it, and it's amazing. It is truly amazing the job that they do.
Absolutely. Would any of you all like to talk to us a little bit or say anything?
But we got to stand to give them a hand.
I say we do.
Anyone would like to come up and talk to you about the podium, sir? Well, thank you all for coming this evening. We initiated this earlier this year. We wanted to meet the people that are out there. We wanted to know who you are and get a good knowledge of what's taking place, with particularly the counseling and the social working that's going on in our schools. So, but just thank you all for coming tonight and being with us this evening.
Thank you for having us.
We appreciate you very much.
Chris, stop in the
Okay, got to work now. Thank you all for coming.
Chris, they don't want to hear you.
Can I say this, please?
Sorry, Chris.
Listen to me.
Clear the room.
Sucks for you guys. I felt Kevin, I know how you feel, buddy.
Chris, can you read that back to me?
Oh, I guess I'll try.
If we drink all that coffee,
No, would you like some more?
I can get it.
It's good.
Yeah.
Just
I kind of got to like it all there. Try it again.
Kevin keeps saying very, very fast, but I think he owes me, right? I told him I'm listening to him way more than he's listening to me.
And that's not nice, right?
Probably Dave and Marissa want to say that.
It won't be long. That's all the questions we got.
Okay. Mr. Bayless, how can we, is the coffee available for purchase now?
Is coffee available?
It will be Thursday.
Thursday, okay, thank you.
It's good stuff.
You got it before it's available. You got the inside track on it.
Thanks to Chris, because he brought it to us. It's strong. Just in for half.
Mr.
All right, I'm going to move this along, trying to get going so these folks can draft back home. They've got a long ways to go. It's after October 1. So basically what I'm going to show you is all the things that Dr. Dietrich submitted to the State Department for our reports for our county. And I'm going to go through it really quick. So one of the things that she does is our graduation cohort rate. As you can see, Nicholas County High School was 95.7, Richwood is 95.5. And all of this, both of these reports that I'm showing here are in your board packet. So in your teams, you can look at these later. I'm just going to go through them real quick. Your dropout rate, Nicholas County High School's dropout rate was 0.08%. Ridgewood High School was 1.9%. So you can see the numbers. I'm not going to go. I'm just skimming through them really quick. There's your special education child count numbers as you scroll down.
It's the second one. It's online.
It's online. I dropped it in your team, in your files. This is the Word document.
Is it? Not on the,
I see it.
and,
It's the blue word,
Yep,
okay.
yeah,
It's a second one.
second one.
this is just a physical education report that she submitted. It said, yes, all the elementary schools have met their requirements. Like I said, I'm just going through them real quick. Here is, we'll go over this enrollment data more with the next one, but there's some enrollment data. The FTE, 3440 is our FTE this year. Last year was 3430. There's all the exclusions. Like I said, you can look at them. I don't want to take up too much time and go through them.
I think that's the first gain in 6 years. I think every year I've been here, we've dropped.
That's the first gain in, I've been doing this 10 years.
First gain in 10
I
years.
mean,
And we have, it's a 10 student.
10
game.
students.
10 student, net 10 student FTE gain.
Well, now, is that because so many dropped out last year?
I think we had a ton of homeschoolers last year that came back this year. And a lot, we had an uptick from New Life this year. A lot of people came from there, no reason in particular, but that I know of, just.
Well, can we truly call it a gain then if they drop, even though the numbers say they're there, but from last year?
We gained money.
What do you mean? Now, we gained more students in our school system this year than we had last year.
Well, I understand that, but I'm just saying, is that because so many?
Came back from homeschool.
I mean, you can attribute it to several things. People came from homeschool, people came from New Life, you know.
We just gained them into our system. That
We just
doesn't
gained them
mean
into
that
our
people
system.
moved in,
Yeah,
just
so,
people that
Moved around.
moved around.
yeah. We'll go over that in just a minute. The Career Center had 308 students last year. What I'm really happy about, which Tom should be talking about this, but if you look at your male to female ratio, it's pretty daggone good, because predominantly it's been a male, you know, it's been a male dominated school, but 184 males, 224 females, that's pretty good. That's something to be happy about. I believe.
308 is probably one of the highest enrollments in how long?
The 80s.
So since the 80s that they've seen numbers that high at the Learning Center, or Career Center.
And we often, he did all these submissions, I just worked with Dr. Teacher to submit these to the state. So he came up with these numbers, and there's all their contact hours that have to get submitted to the superintendent. Of course, you have to submit it by race, so it tells you our ethnicity groups.
Are those courses currently being taught?
Yeah, those are the Career Center contact hours.
Okay.
Mhm.
I just got this data and I haven't had a chance to look at it.
Yeah. I mean, I know you haven't had that long. Of course, if you got questions, next meeting,
Yeah.
We've been running at a mad dash to try to get it all done, so. Well, IDEA status, so that's your special ed numbers that Ms. Young had submitted to us and worked on. Usually, when I do these reports, people care about two things. They're really curious about the low SES, and hey, how many kids did we get? So here we're at our low SES. You can go through those numbers that you have. For some reason, everybody wants to know who's the poorest school in the county. So that's just the yearly thing. And you can see Cherry River's lowest, but we have lots of schools well above 50%. So we're by no means a rich county, as you can see. So you can look those numbers over. And now is our head count and our FTE, which I created this comparison here for you. You can look at the top one is our enrollment by grade, by school. The top one is this year's October 1 head count. The bottom one is last year's October 1 head count, just to let you kind of see what's there, but also formulated a graph at the bottom that shows you the growth or gain of each class and growth or gain of the FTE. So
Is that part of it?
that's part of the Excel sheet. And I might have to fix a couple numbers on yours, because I think I fixed a couple, but they're pretty close to this.
You can give us a second, let us get on here.
So you can see where Birch River, they lost 11% of their school. Cherry River lost 9%. Mount Lookout gained 12%. Zeta lost 15%. Nicholas County High School grew by 5. Richwood lost 2.8. Both middle schools declined. Panther Creek gained 6%. So overall, the estimated, because remember this, we just sent this to the State Department and they'll verify all these numbers. And it looks like our state aid formula will go up approximately $60,000. So, which won't be seen this year, that's next year's money, right? Yeah. So,
I have a question on the first report from Mrs. Young. On the IDEA list, the total was 616 students. Are those students identified? What does the acronym IDEA stand for?
Ms. Dr. Sure, testing my brain. Individual Disability Education Act of 1973, revised in 2000 something. But those are students who are identified with a disability in our county, from speech to gifted to severe. Those are all, that's just the total count of our students who are eligible for special education services.
So 616 would be around probably like 19 or 18, 19, 20%?
I'm not sure because I don't know what this total is.
That's okay. I just was kind of getting an idea. That's how many kids we had identified with.
3,497 head count.
So, 35. Yeah, it's about.
With an FTE of 3,440.
And that's preschool special needs as well, included in that count.
So that number is of head count.
Yeah.
So it's, all you guys you've been here for a while now. Everybody knows the difference between FTE and head count, right? Are you good at that?
Head count's the actual number of kids, bodies walking through the door. FTA is the equivalent that we get funding for, right?
Yeah, so if they're less than 3 and they don't have an IEP, or if they're 3 and they don't have an, then we don't get nothing for them. But if they, well, that sounded terrible. If they're less than 3, but they might get an hour's worth of service, so we'll get like a 0.1 FTE for them. We'll only get paid for 0.1 and not a whole enrollment. So that's why you'll have a higher head count than FTE, full-time equivalent.
Okay. Any further questions? Mrs. Young, I just wanted to tell you that the superintendent had me to ask you that question just to make sure you.
I just told her, I said, I think they look back here and we're on our phones, they ask us questions.
Well, that is. Any further questions in regard to the enrollment report? And certainly if we have questions, we can fire them to you. But,
I have one question. That big 44 there on Summersville, I guess it's elementary, is that where they redrew the lines and a lot of, well, not a lot, but a lot of the, a lot of these kids went to Zela? Is that?
And Zela's still lost enrollment.
44, what class is that?
You want to?
What,
That's total.
Yeah, it's in the head count difference. Actually, not in Zela.
Didn't they lose?
No, they picked up 8.
Oh, okay, that's from where they redrew the lines.
Yeah, Summersville.
well, that happened a couple of years ago. I don't think that's gonna, that happened a couple of years ago.
Well, I'm saying that those kids they've been in the system, but they just got, some of them
No,
went.
this is the difference between last year and this year. So that redraw happened 2 or 3 years ago. That's not gonna affect that.
Was that long ago?
Yeah, it was. But I'm just wondering though, because of the certain area that has the concentration of homes that people rent and things like that, could cause for growth.
Yeah,
But
But
it didn't hurt it any.
yeah. But if you guys have any questions of future, what future enrollments will look like for any of your schools, all you have to do is subtract this year add the one coming in. So, you know, like if you look at Nicholas County High School is going to lose 141 students this year, but they got 200 coming in. So next year they're going to go up by 60 students, 59 students. Richwood High School, they're going to lose 93, and they got 73 coming in. They're going to lose 20 students next year. So if you want to think about projections on schools, all you got to do is take off your seniors and put in your 8th graders, and you can look at it that way. Just give you a little bit of ability to look at your own data.
Okay.
Because you have classes. I mean, they're separated by grade. So.
You do the same thing with the elementary?
I mean, we can't predict what comes in
Okay.
kindergarten.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
So middle school's a little bit different. I've always did them at a 60-40 split. If you take all of Gully River, all of Panther Creek, add that class up, all the 5th grade classes for both of them, typically 60% goes to Summersville Middle School and 40% goes to Ridgewood, and that'll kind of give you that's just been a historical number that could be more some year and less another. That's just kind of an average that I've taken.
You've been pretty solid with where you projected it out, though.
Yeah. So.
Okay, what's the difference between, at the top of that page, you have the middle schools there with 63, 74, 81, and then down the, farther on the same page, you have 80, 86, 88.
What you're talking about, sorry. I see 80, 62, 73 is this year's numbers, and 63, 74, 81 was last year's numbers. That was last year's class size.
That's not what's on here. Come
What's
on, look
here?
at that.
oh, they're,
Are you looking at FTE?
oh,
You're looking,
well,
No.
they're backwards here. I mean, we got 19 on the bottom and 20 on the top, and it's inverted
63, 74,
on
81.
what we're looking at.
Oh, I may have uploaded the wrong one for you.
No, well, yeah, we got 19 and 20.
Well, if you got 19 and 20, I uploaded the wrong one.
Yeah, you did.
yeah,
I'll
you
fix
did.
it. I'll give you the right one.
Okay. Yeah, because I was looking for
That's
21.
one of the numbers.
That's my fault.
You weren't crazy.
It's my fault. See, it should say 21
Yeah,
and 20, so I'll re-upload the right ones
it
for you.
says 19 and,
See what you do.
That'll help a little bit.
In the meantime,
The things
if you
that
have
happen
to look at this, I've got a hard copy for you.
459. The things that happen at 4:59.
Very observant, Mr. Amy.
Huh?
Very observant.
Well, you gotta watch old Chris.
You know, watch me. Why didn't you put me before those fine folks, those good employees? You should have put me first so I didn't look so bad. You just give me what we couldn't do. Come on.
You're fine, you're fine. Any other questions from Mr. Hanshaw on last year's information?
well, actually, that's good. We have 19. And then if you give us 21, we'll have 3 years to look at.
That's all right. That was by design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. That's a lot of
A lot of work there. Item 5 on this evening's agenda, action item, approval of the bid by Buffalo Transport DBA as M&H Construction for mass grading site package for Glen Creek New School Construction site. Madam Superintendent.
I have a copy of the advertising sheet. I'm not sure that got loaded, but I think all of you were, well, most of you were here for it, so. And I also asked, I also asked Marissa Nortz and Dave Ferguson to both come also and provide a quick update, and you guys can also ask them questions. But I'm really pleased to say that Buffalo Transport, doing business as M&H Construction, is a low bid, and I'm thrilled because local folks. And that's great because you get local, and they're going to have a lot of sense of pride in what they're doing. And I've talked to them. They said their employees are local, so it thrills me to be able to keep all this mass grading package money local. So and if you see the bid tabulation sheets, you can see there was not a whole lot of difference between the winning bid and the next in line. And our span, we span from $15,114,848 all the way up to a bid of $28,683. So, you know, there's quite a span in bids. So we had, we had 6 bidders, and feel really good about this. Our architect and construction manager felt great about the bids that came in, and so anyway, that's what we've got with the mass grading package. I'm going to ask at this time to have Marissa and Dave to come up and speak, because Marissa can give you some updates as far as our scope of work that she talked to you about last time. She can go into some more details about the mass grading package, what the scope of work change means for that, and also making application for an extension of, basically just renewing an extension that we already had for our 428 money. And of course, Dave Ferguson can provide additional updates and information.
Hi guys, thanks for having me back. Again, Dave's going to give you all the details. I'm going to just do a quick update on what I'm doing on my end for these projects. Excuse me. So the last time I was here, I updated you on the scope of work change that we submitted for the additional acreage. And again, we submitted that so that we could handle a leveling issue and avoid some high retention walls and other stormwater facilities. We also, at that meeting, you guys voted to approve a scope of work change to address the program, the educational programs and the amenities for the Glade Creek project. We got that submitted shortly after I was at that last meeting. One thing I want to update is at that last meeting when we talked about the scope of work for the additional acreage, that was prior to the grading package going out. We had estimated that if we were permitted to do that, if FEMA grants us the approval to do that, we were looking at a savings of approximately $13 million. So the grading package came in a little higher than what we were anticipating, and I think that's probably because of COVID, material shortages, the cost of everything right now. So that grading package that was estimated, we were estimating $2 million savings if we can disturb the additional acreage. So we got about $400,000 for that instead. So we're looking at about 11.4 that we didn't have to put into the stormwater walls and hauling off the dirt off the site if we can do it. Instead, that money goes to programs that the community and the students actually get to use instead of just looking at a nice retention wall that they can't use at all. So that money was just allocated over to actual programs, other projects, as opposed to those stormwater retention facilities. If you were to have to haul that dirt off-site as opposed to being able to push it outside those boundaries. So that's where those costs are. Again, I'm going to update you after that grading package went out to bid. We saved about close to $400,000 on that instead of the $2 million that we were hoping for. But again, this global pandemic is affecting everything on cost, and I know Dave can answer more questions on that if you guys have them. The other thing that Dr. Tetrick mentioned that we want to do is in January of this year, the board submitted a time extension for total construction of the Glade Creek project. We were requesting to move that out until December of 2024 for a final move-in. We are going to go ahead and formally renew that request. We're not extending that date, we're just renewing it because if you guys will recall, the West Virginia Emergency Management Division only approved your extension until 2022, March of 2022, and stated that at that time, once timelines became more concrete, they would go back and look at that extension request to 2024. Again, as I mentioned at that last meeting, we are there. Those timelines are much more concrete now. So we're gonna go ahead and get that renewal back in front of the SBA. Again, no, we're not extending it any more than what we were asking for in January. We just wanna get that back front and center so that we're able to continue to show, hey, we still need December of 2024 as your final move-in date. So, and that's my update. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Very good.
When do you think bids will go out on the Richwood site? Apparently the leveling and all that's done. When's the building going to start?
The Richwood, we said last time we were going to try to get those out first, second week of January. Bids would be received first or second week of February. I think that's what our schedule is.
You have to start construction on that, is it in March or when?
I think we'd start construction as soon as weather breaks after February. It says probably March, around March.
That's what you told us last time, I think.
And we'll come back, we plan on coming back the 15th, to your next board meeting. We'll have those drawings to go over and all those schedules to have concrete dates as to when we plan on going out to bid, receiving bids, get SBA approval, and we have to still go through with that. So, but the plan is to go out in the winter to get bids received and contracts awarded prior to good weather coming about. They can drill foundations in bad weather, but actually building, they need a little bit better weather. So,
Has to go to the SBA, then to FEMA.
Has to go to the SBA, and then the SBA passes it along, but they give us the approval to go to bid. That's what's happened in the past.
And that's the same with this package tonight.
Correct.
If they approve the mass grading package tonight, it'll go to
To the SBA. Then we'll get, on this package, we'll get contracts awarded, and the contractor would like to start around Thanksgiving, if not the week before. Depends on when he can get mobilized and get equipment on site and start turning dirt on this site.
Is it common that one bid would be as high as the highest bid is here?
Yes.
Yes.
You typically,
And as low as,
typically what happens when you bid like that, you say we have 5 bidders instead of 6. You typically have one that's really low, one that's really high, then you have 3 right in the middle, if you have 5. I use that as an example all the time. You typically have 2 or 3 that's right in the middle. So I think you have 2 that are 19 million, and one's like 21 million, and then you have 2 that are 15 and change, then you have one that's 28. And it's a lot of it depends on where they get the materials, what they have to pay their employees, how many days. If you look at the number of days, low bidder was at 187. That's pretty average for that size of a project. You're moving over 800,000 cubic yards of dirt. You're installing retaining walls. You've got relocation of existing gas well lines. You've got parking lots and driveways to install the base, the aggregate base. You're getting all your fields ready, and building some small retaining walls and your drainage basins. So you're doing quite a bit for that amount of money. What probably made his price so attractive was, one, he's local. He's got a local workforce. He doesn't have to house anybody generally. So a lot of these guys are coming from way out of town, so they have to factor in housing, employees from coming in from out of town. That's where their workforce was. So that's why you see such a wide range of costs.
I noticed one of those mentioned hydro seeding. Was that a part of the bid for everybody, or?
Yes, whatever they bid, everybody bid on the same thing, same item.
But they just happened to be,
That was just
show up on there.
company
bid.
name.
Oh,
That's the
that's just the
company
company name.
Oh, okay.
that's just their.
Will they start as soon as the bid's approved?
Yes, as soon as they get
They'll start right
mobilized.
away.
As soon as they get mobilized, that's
Okay.
whatever long it takes them to get mobilized.
I spoke with the SBA, and they said they'd received the grading and site package bid, and had sent it on to FEMA.
Correct.
And so they think that that'll be okay right away.
Right, that's why we sent that to them prior to bidding. They approved us to go to bidding. And then we sent them the bids, they know what the bids are, they have all that information. And then as soon as you all approve it, what generally happens is we call the SBA, say everybody's approved, it's okay for us to get a contract. And if they don't have to take it on, I don't think they have to take it on to FEMA or anybody, because it's just what normal process we would do with an SBA project is we would go ahead and write the contract, send it to the contractor first, get him to sign off on everything, get his bonds and insurances, then we make sure all that's correct, and we send it back to us. Then we send you the final contract for signature, and we're off to the races. Then we can have a pre-construction meeting and get his stuff mobilized on site. It may take him a week to get his bonds and insurances. I don't know how fast he'll move with his, whatever company he uses for that. But I know we talked to him, he would like to get started around Thanksgiving. Usually Thanksgiving's a dead week for contractors. All their force goes hunting and everything, so it depends on that, what his workforce is. It might take him a week to get some of his equipment out there, because there'll be some big equipment out there.
Yeah, maybe, I'm not sure where all that equipment's coming from. It may
Yeah,
take longer than that.
Right.
Had another question.
Yeah, they also have to put up silt fence and do all the DEP stuff, organize that prior to doing any earthwork as well. So they've got to strip topsoil and they've got a lot of work to do.
But the process right now is, first of all, we have to approve it tonight.
You have to approve it tonight.
Then it moves along.
And then it moves along, it starts the process of getting into contracts, issuing contracts to get for signatures. And then once the contractor signs the contract, we send it to you for signature. And it's just a formality after that. We can go ahead and get started.
Yeah, I know what I started asking. About the weather, one of the speakers we had here said it was the weather in Charleston, not the weather here that...
That's the weather days that are listed in the specifications. I think we corrected that with some language in the specifications for weather days.
So there may be an adjustment there.
Right, there's so many weather days built into his contract for the drawings and specs.
Mm-hmm.
And then anything above and beyond, he has to prove it was a delay to actually get a delay claim. And he only has so many days to do that. So we'll work with him. There'll be on-site inspections every other week. Skanska will have somebody there every day. So we'll be able to monitor every day.
Well, I think since they're local, they will work days other contractors might not work.
Right, and it's a phased completion because we want the building pad completed first. So the building contractor can come on site and actually work on the building pad prior to the site contractor finishing the surrounding area.
Well, and they're local. They may end up working, the boss may call everybody and say, show up at noon.
Right.
They may end up working a half a day or putting in their time later in the day.
Right, and they have to produce a schedule for us and for you all as to what they plan on getting accomplished every month, every week, as time goes on. They have to meet that schedule. And if they don't meet it, then they have to produce what's called a recovery schedule for us to, because if they're not meeting their schedule, then we can withhold payment, we can do whatever we need to do to keep them moving. I really don't think I think you got the best of both worlds. You got a really good price, and you've got a local contractor that's wanting to do a good job. Right. So to me, that's a win-win.
He seemed very excited and confident.
Well, they've always been supportive of the schools.
And he's very comfortable with his price. I always give the low bid person the opportunity to get out without taking his bonding. But he's very secure with his price. He's very confident. So I don't have a problem awarding the job to him. And he can bond the project. And usually somebody that can bond something like that size, that easy, is a good contractor.
And we plan to have cameras on site so that the community can, get on, like these Eagle cams. I don't know if you've ever watched them. It'll be something that you can actually monitor progress,
Right.
live feeds.
You'll be able to log on the website, your all's website, and monitor construction daily. You won't see much at first, and then you'll see a lot of activity, and then once the building steel goes up, that'll be really interesting. So we'll keep those cameras going. I think Chris and I talked about 2 or 3, maybe 4 cameras. We'll contact some company and get that started.
And those will be on both sites, right?
Yes.
Both sides.
Both sides.
That's good. You're talking both sides.
Yes.
Just last clarification here. So tonight we approve then it goes to SBA, and they have a window of like maybe 10 days, is it?
Yeah, that's for the review of drawings.
Yeah.
We just want to notify them that you have approved the contracts, we're going to move forward. If they don't have any objection, I'll call in first thing in the morning. Now, they're in interviews tomorrow, so it might be Wednesday before they get back to me. But I'll send them an email and tell them what we're doing so they know. But we want to go ahead and send out the contracts.
So, and then once they notify you, you can go ahead and begin the process of getting the contracts ready for signature, then you're
Correct.
gotcha. Good, thank you.
No problem.
Any further questions for Ms. Nortz or Mr. Ferguson? Guys, thank you all for coming this distance again, and I'm sure we'll see you again.
I'm sure we will. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
I want to look at what he looked at real quick. I went and looked at the uploads, it was the rate information. So I'm gonna look at that.
Which one do you need to look at here?
Go my ass.
But maybe that's what you said, you did some later.
Maybe they changed the date on the top of
We had 21st.
it. These we can change the
Oh,
comparison.
you have both sets. You're on sheet, let me scroll up. At the top, you can scroll between sheet 1 and sheet 2. And find it.
Now I tell.
How can it be 63 and 80?
Because it's last year.
Just let the record show I had nothing to do with that.
You're clear.
I uploaded
See,
it
sheet
on
one,
Friday.
sheet one's the other one, yeah.
Yeah, sheet 1 and sheet 2. Sheet 1's last year and sheet 2's this year. See that top at the top right there?
I knew it, I just didn't tell you.
Just making the point I didn't mess up, okay? I was wrong
Oh,
once.
we never believed that to begin
I was
with.
wrong once, Dr. Penix. I thought I was wrong.
Oh, so we didn't go to sheet 2.
Sheet one is the one you need to go to.
No, sheet 2.
Sheet 2's one you did.
Yeah, sheet 2.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on sheet two, that's right, yeah, sheet two.
How'd you leave the sheet?
That's right, sheet four.
You just did it.
Hit it again.
Roy, did you see what we're talking about?
I'm sorry.
Do you go back to that Excel sheet where the enrollment was?
Okay.
All right, at the top, you see sheet 1 and sheet 2. If you touch sheet 2, that's where the information is for this year, and sheet 1 is for last year. See it?
What page? What do you want?
Like I say, you gotta watch it, Chris.
And then hit, leave it on sheet 2. It should be, if you hit sheet 1, go to sheet. Anyway, that's sheet 2, that's what it's called.
Okay.
If you see the difference at the top of the page with like 1st of October of 2020 and 1st of October 2021 are the two different ones. Okay, item B, under action items, Madam Superintendent, approval of the superintendent's performance evaluation process as outlined in West Virginia Department of Education policy. It should be West Virginia Board of Education policy 5309, and the template developed by the West Virginia Association of School Administrators and West Virginia School Boards Association.
Yes, so the policy revision, 5309, was out public comment. There was a lot of discussion about it. There was superintendents involved, there was different parties involved in developing the superintendent's evaluation. The board has an opportunity to develop their own evaluation for the superintendent or adopt the state one. And I'm coming before you because I believe the state and school, that each of the parties, the School Board Association, West Virginia Administrators Association, did a fair job in developing the program or the process. And I would ask that this board adopt the required criteria for the superintendent evaluation process. It has to be submitted to be known what process the board decides to use before December 31st. And if the board adopts this one as it is tonight, then we can, I can submit that to the State Department of Ed, and they will have it on their next agenda, along with probably the majority of the other evaluation tools being submitted in the state.
Do we have a copy of that?
It's in your board packet,
On the electronic.
your electronic copy.
And I might add, this one,
Policy 5309.
it's,
I have 4. Okay, gotcha.
this replaces that lengthy document of 84 things that we have to check off, and you know what I'm talking about?
So when we do that again, it'll be more compact.
It'll be this
It'll be this one here.
form that's right here, and we just established those goals last week with the superintendent.
Yeah.
And so we will evaluate it on that sheet. It removes all those check-offs of those 84 or 82 items we did before.
So your goals with them will be the same as every superintendent in the state
No,
that chooses this.
Well, they'll be different. It'll be the same evaluation process. But one of the good things about this, the other one was kind of disconnected, in my opinion. With this process, it's based on the strategic plan that is approved by this board annually. And then the goals, my goals have to address what's on the strategic plan, and just basically what you see based on student achievement and my progress toward that. And it just makes sense. It's just clear, concise, measurable goals, and you're evaluating me on those. So it's all connected.
I would say also, when we did the other system where we had 82 items to check off, now you all may not remember them, but I had a total, so I certainly remember them, but we became more focused on checking off and making sure we got the right totals than we did the discussion that should be occurring about the goals and whether we're accomplishing those goals or not. So the School Boards Association and the Association of School Administrators, which is all 55 superintendents in the county, have come together with this evaluation tool under the direction of the West Virginia Department of Education, and put together the policy, which is West Virginia Board of Education Policy 5309. So I agree with the superintendent. I think this is now a more meaningful document, and it allows for us to get focused on the issues that we face in the school district. Any questions, any further questions in regard to the superintendent's evaluation process?
Does that include the optional criteria as well as the required on the first page?
Tell me what you're talking about. On the first page of the tool,
It says required criteria and optional, and I'm requesting that it be the required criteria.
yeah, anything's optional, but it's required. The required is what we have to do. Any further questions in regard to the evaluation?
In the appendix, where it says Title 126, Legislative Rule.
Let me get to where you are, I'm sorry. The appendix?
It says Appendix, Title 126, Legislative Rule. Under General, it says effective date September 15, 2021. Is that the old system? Or is that when this was revised?
I asked the same question when we were talking about this. It's not effective. I think the policy has just been approved by the State Board of Education, maybe in their last meeting.
Yeah, that's what I understood. It has to go to the state superintendent and then on to the state board.
The State Department of Ed is asking us to go ahead and present this now, and when they take it for their approval, they're going to take the grouping of approvals by county boards of education with theirs.
I think what Roy's talking about is the filing date and effective date's already passed. Is that what you're saying, Roy? Are they gonna update
Yeah,
this?
but
Yeah,
I don't know whether they're talking about this one or the one we worked on last time. Since the effective date was September 2021, then they must be talking about the old evaluation. So
but, but
this one's due December 31st.
right.
Right.
And this, what we're saying is this is what we're accepting moving forward from this point as the new evaluation process for the superintendent of schools. Now, those dates will change, I would think, on the, and I mean, the filing date, they might have filed that with the Secretary of State's office on August the 16th, but the effective date, I guess they're passing it retroactive to that date, maybe, I
Well,
don't know.
that's the policy.
Mrs. Henry, or Mrs. Atkins, do you know anything?
This is the policy filing date with the Secretary of State, and the effective date being September the 15th, 2021. So that's just saying that this policy is in effect, and I'm bringing forward an evaluation process that is supported in this policy. So
Yeah.
this policy's already,
That's the way I read this.
that's in effect. I mean, that's what that's talking about. They filed it.
It was effective in September of the 15th.
Correct, of the new, that's exactly right. So that means that we either have to develop a county-approved evaluation process, and that then it has to go to the State Department of Ed for approval, or we have to adopt this process, and it goes to the county board. This is just simply the policy that says those are your options.
This is the one our educators or superintendents got together and came up with, this
Yes.
plan.
Yes, and I'm happy with what the state has. I'm not asking the board to make any adjustments. I'm just asking that you adopt it as is on the
Now,
required
this goes into
portion.
effect 22, 23.
It went
Yes.
into effect,
The policy went into effect on
In
this day,
September.
but it's for my next evaluation. This board has already evaluated me, so my next evaluation coming up, you would use this new tool.
Okay, and it would be called the 22, 23 or 21, 22.
21, 22.
21-22.
Well, this says the revised policy establishes procedures that go into effect beginning 2022-2023 school year. So, you know, I'm still confused on these dates. They're not putting the year on.
Get down on that.
Where do you see that,
Right here.
Mr. Moose?
1, 2, 3.
What page? I've got.
Right
West
here.
Virginia School Board Association.
4.1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Page
It's in the
2.
appendix, yeah.
I got it. Well, they're asking,
WSBA, page 2, bottom of the page, item 5.
they're asking for approval now. So, and they're asking for approval, when it says, in order to receive WV approval by July 1st, the county board must submit its proposed evaluation process to the state superintendent before the preceding date of December 31st. So I didn't write this, and it's a little muddy when you look at some of that. Only thing I can say is, at the last administrators conference that occurred on Friday of last week, the State Department of Ed had an employee there, presented the policy, presented the tool, and asked that we get this before the board, preferably this month. And that way then they would take it on to she would take it on to the state board, state superintendent for approval.
Do you need to qualify that with them, that it would take effect for 20?
Well, I mean, I think the only thing that might be questionable is, would you use this new procedure for my next evaluation, which would be in March, or, my next evaluation, or do we use the old process? So we can adopt the new, I think that's saying that that's the drop dead date. This is just saying this is the process.
I think a point of clarification would be that we know that this has to be used in 22, 23. We asked maybe for superintendent's opinion or state superintendent's opinion or something on, can this be used for the current school year, the evaluation of the current school year? Now, it says 22, 23, and that's one thing, but I think at best, these dates are confusing in the way that this policy is presented. Now, Mr. Moose makes a good point, I think, in that fact that it's confusing. But simply what we're doing is saying, we're accepting this policy as our form of evaluating the superintendent. Is that correct?
Yes, and I can ask for clarification of these dates, but yes, currently I'm asking for approval. The actual implementation of the policy, I can ask for clarification.
But I think you're right about the filing date and then the effective date. Apparently this policy was approved prior by the State Board of Education and made effective that date. Did you agree, Mrs. Atkins, on what it says on that front page?
That's what it appears to me.
In fairness to her, I've not showed her this.
But it says we'll be trained. The revised policy requires County Board of Education members and superintendents to be trained prior to the 2022-2023 school year on conducting evaluations.
Yes, it says that. It's over 2 pages over.
So they can't expect us to use it now if we're not going to be trained
Well, I'm
until
not,
later.
yeah,
I don't think the idea is that you're going to use this tomorrow. I mean,
my evaluation is
not until the spring. So, but you've got to get the process in place.
Well, we don't have any choice. We have to go by this. This
Correct.
is what the state board has handed down and legislature. So we've got to use it, don't we?
I think
Well,
it's just a little bit of confusion.
if
in
you
the
if you read
language.
the policy, it says you can use this evaluation tool that they presented, or you can create your own,
And
but
submit.
you have to have approval from the state. Yes.
Has to go to the state superintendent, then
Yes.
it goes to the state board. Okay.
Yes, so what I can do is definitely ask for clarification, because those dates, when I read it, it didn't even register with me. So the 22-23 did not register with me. I just know that the push is to get these evaluations completed, get the process adopted. So if this board adopts it, what I can do is, I can send an email out tomorrow and ask for clarification. They respond pretty quickly, and then I can give an update at the next board meeting as to when training will occur, how it will occur, when the process is actually being used. But it's my understanding that they would like to see it used at the next evaluation period.
On that 22-23, they wouldn't be saying that if we decide to get or make up our own evaluation, that would have to be approved by 22-23.
Actually, I think it says December
December
31st.
31st of this year.
Yeah, December 31st submitted.
Well, it said on this, at 26, 143.4, point 4.1, beginning 22-23 school year, before evaluation of annual performance of the superintendent, the county board shall submit to the state superintendent for approval by the WVE, West Virginia Board of Education, a written description of proposed evaluation process adopted by the county.
But if you read 4.1A, it says that you have to get approval by July 1st, you have to have it submitted on December 31st.
They even went so far as to give us a little template to ask for approval. They even gave us the language they wanted us to use. So,
We have a meeting Tuesday night. Can you get the further clarification and we run on it then? Like on the dates and, since it's just, it's less than a week, it's a week. Next Tuesday we
they're taking it to the state board, and my time frame is pretty tight with getting it in if I want to get it in for the first grouping. I mean, it's up to you all, but
Well-
it may it won't change the fact, the only difference is when it comes time to evaluate me. Do you evaluate me the very next time, or is it the following time? The tool and what they're requesting us do won't change regardless of those dates. But I can't remember the exact date they wanted it in their hands at the Department of Ed, because they're wanting to take a large group of them and, at the same time.
They discussed this at the September meeting when you guys were in Charleston. They discussed that then, and they discussed it at our secretary's meeting. And the way that it was presented is that we would use this new tool for the upcoming evaluation.
That was my understanding, but then I see it's
That was what
22,
Howard-
23, that's what's throwing me too.
But
But
I
the
think
process
that's
wouldn't
not-
change.
They would expect us to revise everything and be ready by,
I can ask for clarification, I can report out, but I mean, if this board sees fit, I would prefer to go ahead and just get this off my plate, if you're okay with going with what the state has.
no,
And,
okay, one more thing. On this Title 126 Legislative Rule, Board of Ed, you sent it to us. 7.1, page 3. It says, West Virginia School Board Association shall maintain a catalog of evaluation instruments which comply with this policy and shall make them available to county boards. Now, is that what we're asking for?
I think, I know that what that is saying is that should we choose to go away from this format that's been adopted by the State Board of Education, should we choose to go, they have a catalog of other instruments that could be used, that we could use as a resource to develop our own evaluation system. I think the issue that's the problem, though, is this, because I thought about that as well. Should we look at something in developing our own? But we're under a time frame that anything we do has to be done by December the 31st and approved, so that it can be in effect by July the 1st. Am I right? Is that the interpretation you guys have?
That's my reading
that's
of
what
it.
it appears to say.
I still think that 22, 23 date, it takes effect if you want to develop your own and not accept the one they developed.
I take the opposite. I think this policy is pretty clear that, and I had just forgotten as I was looking through it here, this doesn't take effect till 22, 23, I don't think.
Right.
Either way. So we're back to using the old system for this year.
And I think they're throwing a lot of dates there when they did certain things, and that's confusing us.
Yeah. Well, right off the bat, when we affect it, you think, it's like we think that they're going to approve their policy when they've already approved it
Yes.
based upon the dates at the very beginning of this. All they're saying is, are you accepting whether you're going to use this or are you going to develop your own policy?
And that's going to entail more meetings,
Yeah,
if we make up our own.
yeah.
And then we'd have to submit it, and they would evaluate it or critique it.
Maybe not accept
We
it.
don't want to
Yeah,
do that.
I think if we don't accept what they have here, every time we file one, they may have a comment on it, or, that may come back to us.
And it says this will be in effect until we ask to have it changed. One of the things that, again, they haven't stepped out in this policy that says process shall specify how the goals or objectives will be established when the county board and superintendent seem unable to agree. Well, I think that's really important because this process clearly outlines how that happens. If there's a disagreement between the board and the superintendent on those goals, the process provides the parties a petition that the West Virginia Board of Ed to designate an individual to facilitate the agreement on goals or objectives, that the county board will engage the West Virginia School Board Association and the West Virginia Association of School Administrators to facilitate agreement, or that another specific procedure will be followed to break the impasse. So that's something else that's required, and it's laid out. So if we follow the policy, it's pretty well all spelled out. If the board doesn't want to approve it tonight, then we can put it back on the agenda. It will go later in the year.
We'd have to go at their December meeting.
You have to go at their
November
December meeting.
and then the
I was just
December-
trying to get it off my plate.
because
Well,
it's,
I make a motion, we,
Well, wait a minute, we're looking at the first these three pages on this. Is that right?
Not the first 3 pages. We're looking at the required, there's required criteria, and I'm asking that we follow the required criteria.
Yeah, that's required criteria, optional criteria.
Not the
Just have a page
optional.
for
No, yeah, not the optional. I'm asking to follow the required.
I mean, the thing is, when it's in effect, it's really immaterial as to whether or not you accept this, because if you gotta use the old process in the spring or this new one, we can fret that out later, but eventually, whether it's this year or next year, you're going to use this.
But we could use this year in place of what we've been doing. We could just get a
I
jump on
can ask
it.
for clarification.
I don't think we can, because I think it's back to what Mr. Musa has said just a few moments ago. There's required training for this. You have to have, the board has to be trained, the superintendent has to be
Well,
trained.
but then the sooner you get this approved, the sooner they can get that set up and.
Now, that's a possibility. I mean, that's something you could ask about.
I can
If
ask.
the board is trained and the superintendent's trained, could we utilize that for this current year? But I think the School Boards Association is attempting to have that training done at the winter conference, which is generally February.
Which means, so again, Mr. Moose had asked, I don't know if you all heard, but he had asked if it was the first 3 pages. And I'm specifying that I'm asking for the required criteria. I'm not asking for anything beyond that.
Well, the optional criteria is still optional.
Well,
No,
I'm not
whatever
asking
you
for that.
adopt tonight, if you don't include this optional in the criteria, it will not be part of
It's
the
not part of the
criteria.
criteria.
It's optional for you to adopt.
well, I think the old evaluation process was long drawn out, and I've added those together too. I know what, you need a big table to figure that out, but I think this would be better. And it covered some stuff I don't think that was necessary.
Any further questions for the superintendent in regard to the superintendent's performance evaluation? All right, thank you all. We have action items A and B as presented this evening. The bid for the Buffalo Transport Construction Company for the site preparation at Glen Creek, and B, approval of the superintendent's performance evaluation process as outlined in West Virginia Board of Education Policy 5309.
I ask that those be considered separately.
Okay, all right. We can do that. We'll go with the A first. Is there a motion to approve action item A, the contract with M&H Construction? Mr. Amick moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Moose seconds the motion. All those, any further discussion in regards to the contract? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. On item B, approval of the superintendent's performance evaluation process as outlined in West Virginia Board of Education Policy 5309 and the template developed by the School Boards Association and the Association of School Administrators. Is there a motion to approve action item B?
I make that motion.
Mr. Berry moves. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Mrs. Kaufman seconds. Is there any further discussion in regard to the superintendent's performance evaluation?
Well, now on this, she is going to ask for clarification. I mean, we kept asking, each one of you kept asking a different question. So are we gonna go with B1, and she's going to ask for a clarification to get back to us about some of this, or?
Clarification on the,
I was going to ask for a clarification on when the process actually takes place, not on the instrument. The instrument that is before you, regardless of when it's implemented, would be the same. And I'm asking for this instrument of the required criteria be what is approved. So even if I get back with you and they say that its first implementation is 22-23, that doesn't affect or doesn't change the evaluation tool.
But I would ask them about all these dates in their own paperwork. That's what, if it's throwing this board off, it's gonna throw other boards off. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand that.
So the policy wouldn't change. That's their policy with the dates. The instrument to evaluate doesn't have dates.
Instruments, two different things.
I think they just threw a bunch of dates there, it's throwing us off.
Is a week gonna make that much difference? I mean, if we could vote on it at the meeting Tuesday night.
I mean, it just may not go out with the first group of,
What's your date on that?
I don't recall.
state board meets generally about the second Wednesday, so it'd be,
So they wanted it.
they would be meeting, we meet on Tuesday the 9th, they meet on the
Wednesday.
It would be too late.
That would be too late for their agenda.
We're pushing it now. But again, the tool wouldn't change, even if you implemented it next week versus in 3 years from now. The tool is the tool. So,
I understand that. I think we all do, but it's these different dates, unless that was different things that they completed, and then that was the date that was actually completed.
Well, maybe it's because of what Dr. Pennick said, the training part of it would not be actually, we would not do that until the winter conference, which you said was February.
yeah, January, February, yes. I think the thing that really is kind of throwing us here is we viewed that we were approving that their policy, we were giving them the go-ahead to approve their policy, which means they're going to approve it in the future, and we have this date of September the 15th on there, which means now that I think about it, they filed it with the Secretary of State's office, as they normally do. Is that correct, Mrs. Atkins?
Correct. Anytime that there's a rule where the legislature gives an agency the authority to promulgate rules, they have to file that with the Secretary of State's office.
They filed it on that date, and then after a period of time, then they approved it in their September the 15th board meeting. They approved their policy. And now they're throwing it out to the counties and saying, you either accept the policy,
Well,
or
I think it's not accept the policy, it's now counties choose the evaluation tool that you're going to use.
right.
Are you going to use the one that's set forth in the policy, or are you going to create your own? So really, that's the question.
So the only thing, if we do approve this, what would be approved is we're just simply saying, we accept the board's model process for evaluating superintendent.
Correct. Instead of making up our own.
you're not accepting the policy is the policy.
Yeah.
And the policy is the one that has those 22-23 dates. What you would be accepting would be the evaluation tool that is supported by the policy that was developed by the state.
Correct. And whether you use that tool this spring or the following spring is, in a sense, it matters, but it doesn't matter for your action tonight because you're going to have to adopt the tool.
Well,
And
we
adopt it
can't
now or
use
adopt it later.
this one until we have training.
Correct.
So which says that we won't even be doing this evaluation probably until the 22-23 school year.
Which is correct. So if you adopt this tool tonight
That's all I'm saying.
and the idea is that it's effective in 22-23, you're not binding yourself to use it this year unless that's permissible. And sometimes, and I'd have to go back and look at the code, and I just haven't done that, sometimes the legislature will say, we'll give you a date, by a certain date, you have to have this policy developed, and it could have come out sooner than what the legislature intended. That's also a possibility. I'd have to go back and look at the code.
So we could adopt this tonight, and if we can't use it until 22, 23, then that's good.
So this is the information that we got from the Department of Education. Deadline for West Virginia Board approval at the November 10th, 2021, please send by November 9th, 2021. For approval December 8th, please send by 2021. December 8th, 2021, please email by December 6th. And it's background information, August 15th, 2021. The Board of Education, State Board of Education revised policy 5309, county superintendent performance evaluations, and this policy became effective September 16th, 2021. The policy stipulates that the evaluation process beginning with school year 22-23 be approved by the West Virginia Board of Education. To receive Board of Education approval by July 1st, the county board must submit its proposed evaluation process to the state superintendent before the preceding December 31st. And on the following pages, you will find the process, a template and policy 5309 for your review. The process contains the criteria. If you choose to adopt this evaluation process, a sample recommendation is provided for board agenda items below.
Okay, I think I understand this now. So what they're asking, you have to have approval of your tool for the 22-23 year by July 1st. So in order to get July 1st approval, you got to submit it to the board
Before December
31st
of this year.
So it's not going to be effective until 22-23.
So we'd have plenty of time for the training.
Yes.
Yes.
But I still will say it's vague, those directions.
It would be probably more helpful to us had we had that, what you just read there. And
Yeah.
I haven't probably been.
I searched it and just found it.
Yeah, that does explain a few things there. So we're just approving the process and for the 22-23 school year. And then I guess, do we have to do it annually after that, or is it just a perpetual?
It says it continues.
Until you ask to change it.
To ask to change it, but you'd have to ask to change it before December the 31st of any given year,
Correct.
so you can use it the following year.
And probably well in advance before December 31st. So if you create your own tool, they've got to approve that, and you would want to leave yourself a cushion if they would send it back and say this is not acceptable.
We don't want to.
Well, it says it has to go to the state superintendent before it goes to the board. So it's got
Right.
2 stops.
Well, and I'm assuming if you adopt the process that they recommend, that's already
Yeah,
kind of
it's
been
kind
pre-approved by the
rubber stamp.
superintendent, yeah.
Because it says the evaluation process to be submitted to West Virginia Board of Education for approval. So it's going to the state board prior to December 31st. And Charlene Coburn is the one who's over that.
Okay, that's much clearer now.
Okay.
Well, this was an additional explanation I forgot that they had sent. So I just searched my messages.
So we have Barry that
Somebody from
made the
Washington.
motion and Libby that
Just
seconded.
glad I remembered it.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, for getting us back. Okay, we do have a motion on the floor to approve the superintendent's performance evaluation process as outlined in West Virginia Board of Education Policy 5300 and the template developed by the West Virginia School Boards Association and the West Virginia Association of School Administrators. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No, I prefer optional criteria to be added. I vote no.
All right, Madam Secretary, let the record reflect that the board members Amy, Berry, Kaufman, and Penix voted in favor of the motion, and that Mr. Moose voted in opposition to the motion.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Consent items. Finance, payment of current invoices. Mr. Hess.
Just 2 items on the finance agenda tonight. First is payment of current invoices, if you have any questions. We'd emailed out some last minute checks there that we got on Friday, and I've given you a hard copy of that this evening.
Those ZMM payments, are they just quarterly things or what? I mean, they're not doing anything, but.
Those are actually monthly payments. The payments you see in there this time are for the month of June, July for both locations, and the month of August for both locations. And so it includes ZMM and any professional services that they have hired under them, such as the
Scanskill, Terragon.
And they are continually working on design efforts. They can't bill for things that they're not doing.
I think the set of drawings for Cherry River alone is probably 300 pages and requires a lot of work. And we would never see. And probably the one for Glade Creek is going to be 600-800 pages, I would say. I mean, those drawings would be that thick by the time they get all that stuff done. So there's a lot of work that's occurring that we won't see, of course. But
Yeah, I want to make sure we make note of that, because the statement that they're not doing anything is incorrect. They are continually working, and we have hundreds of pages of documents.
Any further questions in regard to payment of current invoices?
You may notice that we're going to transfer $5 million out of our checking account at BB&T into our savings account at United, and it's just for better interest rates. Item B is an out-of-state travel request. Emma Pickleberry in Walter, Washington, or to the Walter E. Washington Convention Center in D.C. on November 18th through the 20th.
Are there any questions in regard to the out-of-state travel requirement or the payment of current invoices? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve consent items A and B as presented?
So moved.
Mr. Amy moves, and Mrs. Kaufman, I'll give you the second. Any further discussion in regard to consent items? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. Mrs. Adkins, Madam Superintendent, fellow board members, is there a need for an executive session to discuss personnel matters?
No.
Okay. Mrs. Adkins.
Okay, you have before you the updated personnel agenda. An updated copy was made available to the press, but I will read the changes. Under professional, Eric Sean Frame, employee in the position of credit recovery permanent substitute for the Nicholas County Learning Center, effective November 2nd. We are striking the welding position at Nicholas County Career Center. I'm going to be reposting that. Is that correct, Mr. Bayless?
Yes.
Yeah. Mike McKinney, employee in the position of itinerant social worker for Nicholas County Schools, effective November 4th, 2021. This is the social worker that Mr. Williams spoke of earlier that will be at the Learning Center part-time and with the Falter Shelter part-time.
Grant funded.
Yeah. On page 2, under professional extracurricular, Matt Bailey, employed in the position of Journey of Hope after-school counselor at Cherry River Elementary School, effective at the direction of the program coordinator. Heather Leach Jones, employee in the position of COVID recovery tutor for Nicholas County Learning Center, effective at the direction of the building principal. Denise Heiss, employee in the position of academic interventionist for Golly River Elementary School, effective at the direction of the building principal. We're going to strike the boys' basketball position at Richwood Middle School. They had several applicants, and my understanding is that they're going to do interviews so that they will have a recommendation at the next board meeting. Under consent, there are 3 new items there. Pat Matheny resigns her position as principal at Valley River Elementary School effective January 31st, 2022.
Is there an assistant there?
No.
Do we have any prospects? Or, we don't know yet, because we can't advertise, right?
Right, I will post tomorrow. 22 to retirement, Daniel Skipper resigns his position as custodian with Nicholas County Schools effective November 1st, 2021. And Jacob Tyler resigns his position as assistant wrestling coach at Richwood High School effective November 1st, 2021. And there were no leave requests.
You got another science teacher resigning there too, and
Correct.
Nicholas County.
She's a good one.
That's your second team to hear that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I hate that about that principal resigning.
Pardon me?
I hate that about that principal resigning. She does such a good job.
She does a fabulous
She's
job.
wonderful.
Is that due to her need?
She, I talked her into coming back.
She retired.
And she retired,
Yeah.
this makes the second time she's retired, so.
I talked to her too. We had headaches out there earlier. Until
Yes.
she got there.
Yes.
Well, we wish her well. I recovery for knee surgeries.
Yeah, she's still going to be around. She's going to substitute, and she's going to help us develop a principal's handbook.
Okay. Any questions, further questions regarding personnel matters? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the personnel agenda as presented this evening? Mrs. Kaufman moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Berry seconds. Any further discussion in regard to personnel matters? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. Madam Superintendent, I'm assuming you are done for the evening?
Tapped out.
Okay, tapped out. Yeah. Reports, SESC. We still will not meet until the middle of this month, and so there is no report from the SESC. Right Horizons, Mrs. Kaufman.
I did attend a meeting, it was short and sweet, just the usual. And I don't think, are you going to be sending any kids there in the foreseeable
We
future?
currently do not have any students attending right now.
Okay, I
Okay.
didn't think so, but just checking.
Madam Secretary, item 10, any delegations this evening?
No, sir.
Hey, Gus,
Yes,
may I hand something out?
absolutely.
It's about they called a meeting for the extension service. And I don't remember this coming, or me being there, or what. They're gonna vote on, the next meeting, they're gonna vote on budgets for the Board of Education and the County Commission. And I just highlighted there where they put that in there. And I think the board ought to discuss that budget in case they come up with something unexpected. Or, I don't know what, I've never seen this printed on paper before.
You mean like what was in the levy to go to the extension?
Yeah, but I don't know if they're gonna ask, I don't know what, I've never seen that on paper before. And actually, I've never seen a program printed out and sent to me either.
Thank you, sir.
Just the yellow highlighted area, I'm not, I just want to be prepared.
We can call and ask.
Yeah, I called and talked to him today about you and Tracy wanting to meet.
Okay.
So I'll get some more information.
Is this from,
Kevin, I don't know if you heard.
is this from Brian
Sent
Sparks?
you anything on that? I don't get
It's a lot of Bickford.
So I just wanted to go up to some kind of change.
Okay. Nicholas County Extension Service Committee, ESC, will review annual programming and outcomes, vote on annual budgets to the county commission and DOE, approve personnel memo, and additional WVU extension services, Nicholas County business. But that, to me, this is confusing at best because they don't contribute anything to me, to the
It's
Board
always
of
been
Education.
set in the
Yeah.
past, the budget has, but it sounds like they want to change it or something. I'm
Well-
not sure.
Vote on any budgets to the county, I guess probably the budgets that they provide to us and to the county commission to request their levy money.
Could you get a clarification on that, please, for sure, Madam Superintendent?
I can,
Because we can change our,
we have.
what's in the, well,
About like for the libraries and things like that.
That's set in 11.
Yes.
yeah, so we can,
Well, we do have some time, they don't meet until February the
February,
3rd,
yeah.
so,
We'll ask.
we'd have to, but when we did that for the libraries though, it came out of the school money, not levy. So if they wanted additional, right?
all monies, the only monies that I know of that we give for libraries are out of the levy. Is that correct, Kevin?
Well, we gave them,
Levy, library money, levy. The levy, library money comes out of the levy.
Yes, sir.
We have adjusted that a time or two
Yeah,
for
we adjusted it
secretary,
last year,
helping
didn't
or
we?
secretaries or
When it was
personnel,
efficient of the full
maybe
time.
half-time.
In this levy call,
In past years, I don't know about this levy call.
When we weren't collecting the full
I
amount of
don't
taxes.
think we changed it.
We
No,
didn't change it, we increased it.
We increased it
They requested
up to the
increase.
normal amount one year.
When we counted in those taxes.
the board has given additional funds over and above the levy
Levy.
allocation a couple of
At
times.
times, yeah, for
The
secretaries.
levy call has a fixed amount in it for each.
Yeah, that's what I said, but it came out of the board money, not levy money, right?
Those additional amounts.
Yes.
maybe you're right. Couldn't follow you on that. Okay. Items for future meetings, agendas. Madam Superintendent, I think one of your programs is the Cadet Academy next door. Next door, you're going to have that present. So.
Didn't really have anything to add other than what I did on the. Superintendent's information, there was one thing I want to make sure to speak.
Please do.
So I've talked about it the past few meetings. So what I want to do is next board meeting, I've been working with Kevin Hess in looking at our numbers, looking at our finances for staff. And so be prepared for the next board meeting. I'm going to present a budget to you. I'm going to present some information to you, asking our staff to receive a COVID stipend in an amount of 2.25% as we did last year across the board. It came in right before Christmas, and you know, I've waited long enough now that, again, I would need to get it in on the very next board agenda to start getting things processed if this board is so inclined to approve the
Is that
stipend.
at the LSIC meeting or the next regular board meeting?
Next regular board meeting.
15th.
I'd like to see, is there any way, I know we worked for 2 weeks last year on that. Can we ante that up a little bit? Could you look and see?
Yes, I'll look and see what we can do. Yeah. You led the charge on that last time on getting the pay, the stipend, so we can look at it and see what we can do. We have a pretty healthy, you know, we've done pretty well. It's been pretty healthy, so I'll see what we can do.
I'm trying to see the expression on Kevin's face.
It was actually smiling.
He-
Shocker.
We mean, it's one of those things. I believe our staff deserves it. You know, they absolutely deserve it. I mean, people are working hard and, you know, I know they feel like they get little appreciation and the COVID stipend. I think it went a long ways last year for people, especially around Christmas time. And anyway, I just want you to be prepared. Next time, I plan to have it on the board agenda, and I'll have a budget. And Mr. Amick, I will look to see if we can increase that a little bit.
All right. Thanks, good idea, Fred. Future meeting dates. Next Tuesday night, we will be meeting at Cherry River Elementary, and that meeting starts at 5 o'clock, and we'll be hearing from Richwood High School, Richwood Middle School, Panther Creek Elementary, and Cherry River at that meeting. Then we have a regular scheduled meeting on Monday, November the 15th, here at the board office at 5 o'clock. Having no other business to come before the board, is there a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Berry moves. Is there a second to the motion? Second. Mrs. Kaufman seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, we are adjourned at 7:06 p.m.